So right now, the U.S. refugee program allows a special program for Afrikaner farmers, the first group of whom arrived at Dulles Airport in Virginia not long ago, while shutting off the refugee program for everyone else. Do you think Afrikaner farmers are the most persecuted group in the world?
I think those 49 people that came certainly felt they were persecuted, and they've passed every sort of check mark that had to be checked off in terms of meeting the requirements for that. They live in a country where farms are taken, the land is taken on a racial basis.
Okay. I assert that this claim that there's persecution of Afrikaner farmers is completely specious. Are you aware ever during the apartheid era in South Africa, did the United States establish a special program to allow South African blacks who were treated as second-class citizens in the apartheid program, a special program so they could claim refugee status in the United States?
No, because I was probably in 9th grade or 8th grade at the time.
Well, then I don't expect you to know. I'll just tell you, never has there been a program, a special program for Africans to come in as refugees to the United States. You're entitled to entrance as a refugee if you demonstrate a well-justified fear of persecution.
No, you're not entitled.
So can you have a different standard based upon the color of somebody's skin? Would that be acceptable?
Well, I'm not the one arguing that. Apparently you are, because you don't like the fact that they're white, and that's why they're
coming.
saying
that would be unacceptable.
Well, no, I would say that the United States,
a very easy thing
the United States has a right to pick and choose.
Here we see Senator Marco Rubio under pressure, as his narrative begins to unravel in front of the world. As he's grilled over his support for a deeply misleading portrayal of white South African farmers as refugees, the truth is finally emerging. While the president of South Africa meets with then-President Trump, the hypocrisy and inaccuracies in this narrative are being exposed for what they are, a manipulation of facts to push a racially charged and politically opportunistic agenda. Rubio and others pushed a story that claimed white South African farmers were facing genocide, that racist laws were targeting them, and that the South African government was seizing their land without compensation in a violent campaign. This narrative was used to justify granting fast-tracked refugee or asylum status to a group of 49 white South Africans, not because they were fleeing war or persecution, but because they claimed to be victims of reverse racism. This claim has no grounding in fact or law, and the framing of these individuals as refugees is deeply disingenuous. Let's be clear, South Africa is a country still grappling with the long shadows of apartheid. Today, despite the end of apartheid 3 decades ago, white South Africans, who make up only about 7.8% of the population, still control more than 72% of the privately owned farmland, according to 2017 government data. Meanwhile, black South Africans, who constitute over 80% of the population, own just 4% of that land. The Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment (BBBE) policies were introduced as corrective measures to address these historical inequalities, not to discriminate, but to create a more inclusive economy. This is not genocide. It's not even reverse discrimination. It's an imperfect and often poorly executed effort at restorative justice. Yes, the ANC government has failed in many areas, including corruption, service delivery, and mismanagement of key institutions. But to leap from governance failure to cries of genocide is not only intellectually dishonest, it's morally reprehensible. The genocide claim has been investigated by numerous human rights and international organizations, and no evidence has been found to support the idea that white South Africans are being systematically targeted for extermination or mass violence. Crime in South Africa is tragically high across all racial groups, and farm attacks, while horrific, affect both black and white farmers. According to the South African Police Service, SAPS, the majority of victims of violent crime in the country are black South Africans living in under-resourced areas. So when we see white South Africans arrive in the U.S. under the guise of fleeing persecution, what we are witnessing is a distortion of refugee protections to benefit the privileged, not the oppressed. It's a slap in the face to legitimate asylum seekers around the world, many of whom are fleeing real war zones, authoritarian regimes, and religious. If you found this breakdown informative and believe in cutting through the noise to get to the truth, then make sure to subscribe. This platform is about holding power accountable, challenging false narratives, and bringing forward perspectives too often ignored in mainstream conversations. Your subscription helps amplify real stories, backed by facts, not fear. Don't just scroll past, join the movement for honest, bold, and unapologetic commentary. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and be part of a community that refuses to be silent in the face of misinformation. Let's keep the conversation going and keep the truth front and center.